Mr. McLean, please, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Desjardins. Those are really important questions. I'm going to go to paragraph 331 here in one of the criticisms of the report here. We found that when assessing opportunities to generate hydrogen using electrolysis, Natural Resources Canada assumed a very low price of electricity across all provinces. For example, using an electricity price of $40 per megawatt hour across all provinces. This was well below the recent prices observed in Canadian provinces in 2020, which ranged from $52 to $124 per megawatt hour and $264 in the Muskrat Falls scenario. This meant that the department overestimated the opportunity for electrolysis to produce hydrogen at low cost. So following on Mr. Desjardins, all the assumptions you're making in this report you put forward seem like they're back-end engineered. Can you comment on that, please?
I'll turn to my colleague on this.
So thanks for the question, Mr. Chair. The process to come up with those cost assumptions was not NRCan's alone, right? We hired external consultants. We had lots of engagement with lots of experts across many of the provinces, if not all. And so that's how we came to this number. And
so you're saying there's plenty of blame to go around?
I'm sorry, is there a question? Or I think that we are updating those assumptions based on the new costs as they become clear, and we'll have that in March or early next year.
Well, I'll comment that Canadians do expect you to give them a realistic scenario about what we're facing going here, and I think that the report's quite clear that this is a very unrealistic scenario. Let's talk about the full cycle cost of carbon involved in green hydrogen, or any type of hydrogen, if you will, because it does matter. It matters with the production of the steel and the concrete and the copper and everything that's going to come from overseas to produce new turbines. And they've got a 2-year run rate before they're actually energy positive from the inputs that go into their production. In the 10-year life, obviously, they're going to produce something at the end of the day, but they're also going to produce a lot of emissions. And those emissions go up as the resources in the world become more scarce. Have you modeled that into your scenario at all? That'd be an environment question, I think, more than anything.
Derek, Derek Hermanance, would you like to respond to that in terms of the scenarios?
Just say our scenarios, working in consultation with other departments and other parts of the department, try to build in the most realistic assumptions that we can with using the best information we have at the time.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I didn't think I answered the question. I think we've proven pretty clearly on this report that the assumptions built in here don't seem realistic at all. But there is a cost here. There is a short-term and long-term CO2 cost, and there's an indication why we aren't getting lower carbon production in Canada, because we aren't counting the full cycle of this. And offshoring carbon production doesn't work either. If we get wind towers built in Germany and don't count that as part of our carbon footprint, if we're going to use them in Canada for producing hydrogen, then we're missing half the equation. I'm going to go back to the modeling here in both your departments and say, was this modeling driven from on high in order to come up with a result to meet a government narrative as opposed to a realistic scenario?
I would say it's our most realistic scenario at the time of the Strength and Climate Plan, and it's a bottom-up modeling initiative. So looks at each individual policy.
Well, okay,
in conjunction
so
with each other.
So this is the difference between the ECC plan. You're telling me the bottom-up analysis, which would be the incremental analysis, not the transformative one that NRCan put together. So I'm getting a bit of a contradiction there.
I'm speaking of our Environment Canada modeling.
Okay, and which differs strongly from the NRCan model, the transformative NRCan model, correct?
It's a different exercise.
30 seconds.
As we said from the start.
And the exercise is to come up with a realistic scenario about what this is going to cost Canadians, what this is going to cost the environment, and how we actually attain a goal. I'll ask either department if they actually put something reasonable on the table here about how we actually come to a result here that ends up with actual decarbonization in the world.
Mr. Chair, I would say that we are continuing to have our conversations with experts, with other departments, with the CER, all with a view to being as accurate as we can be as to this area.
And thank you very much, Mr. McLean. That is your time. Ms. Shanahan, did you have any